All right. Welcome to the call, everyone. I'm so grateful that you're here this morning. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of a little bit about the premise of gentle parenting, or maybe I guess the approach of gentle parenting. People ask me a lot. They're like, so, as a gentle parenting coach, what is it that you do? And, on the surface, it's like, yeah, we work with our generational trauma and healing from our generational trauma so that we can have healthier relationships with our children and our other loved ones in our lives. And, a lot of times people seem to think that gentle parenting is really about finding a different way to get compliance from kiddos. And, you know, when we really get down underneath the surface, it's just not. If we're still operating from the mainstream paradigm of everything is about control and punishments and all of that, then of course, gentle parenting would be kinder ways to garner compliance, right? But at the end of the day, that's just going to look like manipulation, you know, pressures and trying to kindly enforce, which means that we won't be hitting and yelling, but we'll still be standing in the way, right? And this is where it's really this nuance is super important to me, is that we're not about standing in the way. So if a child is, and I say this in air quotes, if a child is acting out, we want to go ahead and get that kiddo some help and have them either help them navigate through their problems or help them to get the tools to manage the situation differently. Um, so, for example, let's just go with a 2-year old who's hitting. A 2-year old that's hitting, it's incredibly developmentally appropriate. A good portion of children around that age will probably experiment with hitting a little bit. Um, a 5-year-old that's hitting also incredibly developmentally appropriate. And there's definitely no arbitrary age on this, but let's just say that, a kid's getting a little bit older. They're, more like 10 or something like that. And they're still struggling a lot with implementing other tools and finding other ways to get their needs met, finding other ways to engage in relationships. Um, a lot of parents at that point, they might think, oh, geez, it's time to double down and I need to have a stricter hand and maybe more punishments and all of these other ways that they may be able to garner compliance from this child, right? How do I get this child to stop hitting? I need to be more in control. Um, However, a child who's getting outside of the ranges of where it's completely developmentally appropriate and they still haven't got all the tools that or a good portion of the tools that allow them to um, navigate through this situation differently, then instead of thinking about it from this mainstream paradigm of control and punishment and how do I get this child to comply, what if we recognize that a child who's getting outside of where it's developmentally appropriate for them to be hitting and they're still doing it with great frequency, right? Because I mean, it just happens sometimes. It happens even with adults sometimes. So but we're seeing, hey, there might be a problem here. Then instead of engaging in the mainstream paradigm of punishments and consequences and all of this other stuff, then we look at this child and we say, hey, they're having a hard time. They're struggling to be able to implement the tools. And then we look at the thing from a perspective of, well, So if this kiddo is still having a hard time with this, then how can I get them some help? And we can look at that like kind of a plan. Like what is the long game here? What is the long-term plan in order to help this child so that they have the tools that they need to navigate life? And, at that point, we might want to be looking at therapies and maybe possible different diagnoses, different ways that we can support that child to help them be able to implement the tools in the moment. Because it's not just about getting the tools, right? It's also about being able to implement those tools and being able to use a healthier course of action when we're upset and emotionally compromised, which is, incredibly hard work, even for adults. Again. So, you know, in essence, gentle parenting, instead of operating from a paradigm of control and I need to figure out how to get this person to stop doing XYZ, gentle parenting really wants to operate from this paradigm where they're like, okay, um, I see this as a struggling person. And when somebody's struggling, I want to know how to get them help. And I want to know what I can do to help this person have, a good quality of life, to get by in social situations, to get by in like work situations. Um, and so we're constantly working from this paradigm where instead of seeing punishments and control and being in charge of everything, we're seeing things from a perspective of being able to look in and try and find the solutions, and we're problem solving and we're adjusting our sails and we're finding different ways that we can navigate through life and work through the problems with people. And those problem solving skills, they are some of the greatest life skills that we can impart to our children. When you look in at a problem and all you can see is that problem, you're going to get stuck in that problem. But when you look in at a problem and you're looking for potential solutions, you're looking for potential ways to navigate this, that it doesn't, we're not hyper focused on the problem. We see the problem, we understand the problem, and now we want to find ways to navigate through that problem in the healthiest way possible. So we're no longer focusing on the problem, but focusing on the solution to the problems. And there's so much power there that we carry over into our relationships and into our everyday lives. And really, I mean, so much of this is capitalism preparation. Like, let's be real. And as far as that goes, like somebody who knows how to look at a problem and see it as something to solve instead of something that's drowning them, they are going to excel in every single workplace situation they have. And again, in all of those other ways, it's going to apply to their personal lives. If they're looking at problems and instead of getting stuck in bad personness, they're trying to solve the problems, that's going to look good in their relationships. That's going to look good for them. Like, it's going to improve their quality of life, their quality of relationships, and all of these other things that like create healthy, strong foundations for a future that is really enhancing for our children. And so that premise of gentle parenting, that like, and we're not solving the problems for our children, we're working through the problems with our children and we're helping them to find ways to solve them. We're troubleshooting together, because like that is a collaboration in life. And it really is some of the most powerful stuff we can hand over to our children that is genuinely going to enhance their lives in every area and aspect of their lives, as they navigate through this society and what we've got set up for ourselves. So I'll leave it at that and get into the sharing portion of the call. I'm just going to go ahead and shut off the recording here and we'll get started.